Hello, yes, year six. No, the whole of Blue Coat. Hopefully, it's Mr. Harris here. You might be able to see me just slightly. I'm here to bring you this week's Votes for Schools topic. So here we go. So just a quick feedback on last week. Do you get enough sleep? 68.8%, so nearly 70%, 7 out of 10, said that they think they did get enough sleep, but there were some who said, particularly since lockdown, it's been more difficult to keep in a good cycle. I've seen some year 6 children looking quite tired this week, having come back to school, so perhaps there's some truth in that. Let's just check out the news for this week. So an endangered species of seahorse has been spotted in the UK in the waters for the first time in 2 years. Is that something to do with us not driving so many cars and producing so many emissions? Who knows? Sony have decided to delay their announcement on PS5 in response to recent protests. Star Wars John Boyega joined protests in London last week, and you're going to learn more about that in this week's Votes for Schools topic. And finally, members of Parliament queued for 90 minutes to cast their vote as they could not do it online. Lots of people were not happy about that, although the weather looks quite nice there. Okay, quick starter for you with a thumbs up or a thumbs down, just to show whether you think this is fair or unfair. Remember, children, it'd be great if you could do this with an adult or a sibling of yours, particularly an older sibling. Might be good just to have some discussions. So, thumbs up or thumbs down. Is it fair not playing with someone because they have a different skin colour to you? Helping someone who is from the same country as you before helping others. Being friends with someone who has a different religion to you. Using a nickname for someone who comes from a different country. Being treated the same regardless of your race or religion. Asking questions about someone's culture when it is different to yours. Are those things fair or unfair? Will the recent anti-racism protests lead to change in the US? That is our question for this week. John, there are some sensitive issues here talking about racism and inequality in America, so it might be upsetting for you. So do think about whether you want to take part in this and speak with your parent or carer at home. So we're going to look at what is racism. So we're just going to read through these comments, and I want you to discuss or think about what's wrong with the comments. So first one there, don't be a Jew. He can't help it. That's just what black people are like. All white people are like that. Go back to your own country. All brown people are good at maths. You can't play with us because you don't speak our language. Children, these are all examples of racist comments, and if you hear something like that, you should stand up to it and inform an adult about the comment. So racism looks at when someone thinks you're not good enough because of your colour, ethnicity, nationality or race, and it could mean that you are treated differently because of this. Now, if we see a lot of this going on around us, then sometimes we think that those racist comments or jokes might be normal, so it's okay for you to do it too. It can also begin as a reaction to the news or a personal experience. For example, if someone had an argument with a green person, they might start to think all people who are green are unkind. This is racism too, as you're making assumptions over one incident. Something to think carefully about. Have you ever witnessed behaviour like this? What happened and how did you make it feel? We don't want you to share that answer in this case. There's something to think about. Racism is more than just saying upsetting things. That might be something you come across when you're younger, but when people in society hold racist views, it can affect the way the whole country works, and we call this systemic racism. This is more difficult to see in person. There's lots of facts and figures that show this is happening, and there are examples in the US. And here's a few statistics that show systemic racism. Black Americans are 2 times more likely to be unemployed than white Americans, so to not have a job. Black Americans are more likely to be excluded from school, 3 times more likely to be excluded from school. Only 13% of people in the US are black, but 40% of people in prison are black. 72% of white Americans own their own house, whereas only 42% of black Americans do. And black Americans are 30% more likely to be pulled over by the police when driving, and there might not be much reason for that. Okay, we'll move on. Why are we talking about this? Well, I'm sure you would have seen this in the news, children, that recently there have been protests across America and in the UK, and this and around the rest of the world, and many have been peaceful, but some have turned into violent protests. They are a response to the death of George Floyd from Minneapolis, and he is a former police officer who was a former police officer has been arrested and charged with murder over George's death. The name of him is Derek Chauvin, who is white, and he was shown kneeling on George Floyd's neck before he died. Protests have taken place across lots of other countries, even though many of these cities are still in lockdown or at least practicing social distancing due to coronavirus. They're not the first time protests have happened, and the Black Lives Matter movement started in 2013 when they wanted change. However, lots of people think it will be different this time, so we want to know, will this time finally bring an end to racism? They want people to start being not just non-racist, but actually anti-racist. So, is a change coming? Well, many people have been protesting after the death of George Floyd, but what exactly is different to the previous times there's been protests? We're going to look at some situations now, and you need to give a rating of 1 to 10 to show whether change is actually happening. So 10 would mean like a change is definitely happening, and 1 would mean no, this is not a change. So, black people in America have been fighting against racism for hundreds of years, yet it still exists, and changes have been very slow. Martin Luther King started fighting for equality over 50 years ago, but the struggle continues today. We've got a video here of James Baldwin, who's talking about the fight for equality 30 years.
What is it you wanted me to reconcile myself to? I was born here almost 60 years ago. I'm not going to live another 60 years. You've always told me it takes time. It's taken my father's time, my mother's time, my uncle's time, my brother's and my sister's time, my nieces and my nephew's time. How much time do you want for your progress?
Some quite powerful words there. Phone's gone down. In addition to this, anti-racism protests are happening all across the world. Look, there's some pictures there of Syria and the UK, so it looks like more people are taking a stand against this. Does this show change could be happening? Despite protests starting peacefully, a few have turned violent, with buildings being set on fire and shops being looted. So that's looting, stealing from shops during a violent event. Some people have said that violence doesn't help the protesters as it makes people angry at them, but others say that peaceful protests haven't worked in the past, so that's why there's been more violent protests. Other reports say that protests only became violent after police officers tried to stop them from happening, or that violence was started by non-protesters, but it's very difficult to know the truth with that. There's some famous, influential people who are speaking out about racism there. You can see John Boyega, the Star Wars actor, speaking out in London. And there's also some footballers there who've taken the opportunity on the pitch to make some comments. That's Jadon Sancho there, English footballer who plays for Borussia Dortmund. Does this show change could be happening? Donald Trump said he was sickened by the death of George Floyd and that justice will be served, but he's also sent in the army to end the violent protests and tweeted that he has done more for black Americans than most other presidents. But many people are angry and feel that the American government is not doing enough to tackle racism in America. There's lots of social media involved now. So last week there were over 90 million posts on Instagram using the hashtag Black Lives Matter and more than 4 billion views on TikTok. There was also a Blackout Tuesday on Tuesday the 2nd of June where they showed a black screen to support the protests. There was a petition started on change.org demanding justice for George. It wants to make sure that police officers that were involved and arrested are taken to court. And they got up to over 15 million signatures, which is a record for change.org. Have a think about all of those and maybe try and give an overall rating. Do you think change is coming? And you can look back to some of those statistics that we looked to near the start of the lesson. What change do you think need to be made to end the systemic racism? How can these things change? Standing up, speaking out. You've already seen more people than ever are standing up and speaking out. Well, here's some people and the comments they've made over the past week, and say what you think about what's being said. Give your opinion on it. It's great to hear your opinions. So Clara Amfo, who's a BBC Radio 1 host, said events like this make me and other black people feel like you want our culture, but you don't want us. If you enjoy our culture, you must stand up for our rights too. Do you agree with Clara? Medaria Arradondo, chief of the Minneapolis police, says what happened to Mr. Floyd was wrong. There were 3 other officers there who were complicit too. Complicit means involved or knowing that it's going on. Do you agree with this person? Are the other police officers complicit in the death of George Floyd? Barack Obama said, watching everyone of every race and protests makes me hopeful. We need to turn our anger into peaceful action and change to make a better country. What do you think about that? Priscilla Borker is a social worker. Said coronavirus might kill us, but even if it doesn't, the police might. Or losing our jobs and having no money might. So we need to take this risk. That's how important they think it is. Trevor Noah is a host of a daily US TV series, The Daily Show. People say that this isn't the way to protest, but what is the right way? There is no right way to protest because you are against the system. Okay, time to vote now. There's a call to action there where you can learn through TV. So there's a Doctor Who episode about the civil rights movement where they have Rosa Parks on. We've done an assembly on that before. So will the recent anti-racism protests lead to change in the US? There's your arguments for yes, for arguments for no on the right-hand side. To have your voice heard, go to this website. I'll put it in the video notes as well. And I hope that you have enjoyed today's lesson. Speak soon. Bye.